everyone, and welcome back to the Pull List. I'm your host, Brian Heinz. And the Pull List is where I take a month's worth of comics and break them down into easy-to-listen-to quickie reviews. And for week 1, it's Conan the Barbarian, number 12. And this is the final issue of the year-long Conan run by Jason Aaron and Mohammed Asrar. This started out as the story of Conan versus a witch and the demon that she served, has now become a retrospective of Conan's entire life, from young man to elder king. All the while, this cult has been in the background of Conan's life, waiting to use his blood to resurrect this demon. Essentially, the idea being that the more times Conan cheats death, the stronger his blood becomes, and the stronger it will make this demon when it's eventually fed to him. Now, essentially, the cult was just this witch and her 2 children, but then Conan nearly decapitates the witch, but she's resurrected as kind of a zombie ghoul, so now the cult is just these 2 kids and their zombie mother. The final issue features one more flashback to an encounter Conan had with the witch's twin children before going into King Conan's final battle with the demon and the twins, who've now kind of mutated into these half-human, half-monster hybrids. Like any good Conan story, it features bloody combat, hideous monsters, and even a surprise about Conan's future. Overall, this whole series has been a great read with fantastic art that really suited the book. It's sort of an anthology of Conan tales, all connected by the demon Raziel thread. Now, I have decided not to keep up with this book as there's a new creative team coming on board, because even though I've enjoyed Conan the Barbarian, bloody fantasy sagas have never really been my thing. That said, Jason Aaron and Mohammed Asrar are going to be doing a brand new King Conan title coming out this year, and when that comes out, I'll pick that up because I've really enjoyed their take on the Barbarian. Now, for week 2, it's X-Men Fantastic Four number 1. This book is a 4-issue miniseries and is the first major crossover event that the X-Men have had since the Krakoa era started. Written by Robert Zdarsky, former writer of Spectacular Spider-Man and Jughead, and drawn by A-list artist Terry Dodson. Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman's oldest child, Franklin, is a mutant. He's an Omega-level mutant, which means he's one of the most powerful on Earth, and he has the power to create entire realities, which is what he was doing when the Fantastic Four were off the grid a few years ago. The multiverse got wiped out in the Secret Wars, and Franklin was helping to restore them. But since coming back to Earth, his powers are fading away, and his super genius father can't work out why. But since he's a mutant, Professor X and Magneto want him to come to Krakoa, where hopefully they can help him find out how to restore his powers. They ask Kitty, now Kate Pryde, to lead the delegation to invite Franklin to Krakoa, since Franklin and Kitty bonded many years ago in the original 1987 Fantastic Four vs. X-Men book, which I've read and is a very fun story. Of course, Sue freaks out at the idea of one of her children leaving, and a fight breaks out. Franklin then finds out he can't go to Krakoa because, without knowing it, his dad implanted molecules that prevent him from using the teleportation gates that lead to Krakoa. This drives a huge wedge between Franklin and his family, and that's what leads to the rest of the story. Now, there are a lot of things that work for this book and a few that don't. The art is fantastic. Terry Dodson is one of the best artists on the planet, but there are a few pages where it looks like the black inks that were used kind of bled out a little too much. It's very odd. Like on this page where Mr. Fantastic explains why Franklin can't use the gate. I mean, his beard looks like a Woolly Willy puzzle. That's a minor concern, of course. The best parts of the story are the family time with the Fantastic Four, Franklin interacting with the Thing, and how restoring Franklin's powers and making Ben human again are the only 2 failures on Mr. Fantastic's resume. Also good is the sort of mentor bond he has with Kate, but she's not forcing him to come to Krakoa. She's just listening to his concerns and kind of trying to help him come to a solution. Sue, who's normally the voice of reason in this family, was uncharacteristically violent and short-tempered in the story, to the point where I'm asking, what's her problem? I mean, yes, of course, she doesn't want her son to leave, but isn't that his choice? And every parent has to deal with their child getting older and moving away. But she was like acting like Franklin was 2 years old, and she was like, "You're not taking my son!" Ah! And using her powers. Like, whoa, can't you guys have a discussion about this? Also, the X-Men outside of Kate don't really have much going on character-wise. Professor X in this whole Krakoa era has been a little too clinical and emotionless for my liking. This is definitely a Fantastic Four story, but I do love all the allusions and callbacks to the 1987 miniseries. Honestly, Marvel could use a little more continuity nods like that, where we go back and talk about something important that happened, even if it wasn't within the last 5 years. Let's do more callbacks to older stories. That's a great way to get these fans to seek out those stories and read them and get caught up on all this continuity that they may have glossed over. This is a good book, and I'm enjoying it despite a few character flaws and some strange moments in the art. For week 3, it's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey number 1. Given the recent release of the Birds of Prey movie with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, it's no surprise that DC wants to cash in. What is a surprise is that the Harley Quinn and Birds of Prey miniseries is being released as part of DC's Black Label line. Black Label is how DC is releasing a lot of its adult-only titles for its mainstream characters. This miniseries is going to be 4 issues and runs at a retail price of $6.99, but the prints are oversized. Let me show you. Here's X-Men and the Fantastic Four, which we just talked about. Here's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey #1, the variant cover. Let me show you the size difference there. So you can see it's a little bigger. It's mostly wider than it is taller. Harley and the Birds of Prey is being written by former Harley Quinn solo book writers Jimmy Palmiotti and his wife Amanda Connor, with Amanda also on art. Previously, she'd only done the covers for Harley's solo book. Now, I'm a huge fan of this couple. They did Power Girl, Terra, Starfire, but the Harley Quinn book never really clicked with me, even though it was their biggest hit and their longest run. This title is actually a sequel to where they left off with that book. The book left off with Harley and Ivy going on a tropical vacation, but after a series of misadventures, Ivy takes off, and Harley is now homeless after her old base of operations gets destroyed, so she decides to leave behind most of her supporting cast and head to Gotham to scrounge up some cash, which is where she runs into Black Canary and the Huntress, the Birds of Prey, along with non-BOP members Renee Montoya and former assassin, former Batgirl, currently known as the Orphan, Cassandra Cain. Actually, this first issue, only the Huntress and Cassandra show up, with Renee at the very end. Black Canary will probably show up in the next issue, but there are also cameos by Power Girl, Superman, and a certain Mr. J. Now, I've read enough of the Harley Quinn book to know who the supporting cast are. As I said, I've never really cared for the old book, but it pretty much leaves the old book behind in the first half of this issue and sets up this trip to Gotham. Now, for a DC superhero title, there's a lot of violence and swearing in this book, but maybe I shouldn't be that surprised because it is a black label title and that allows for violence and swearing. No nudity, though. Damn it. But you know what? Any book where Amanda Connor draws Power Girl, I'm in, even if it's only for a couple of pages. The book on the whole was pretty funny, and while it is a sequel to the Harley Quinn solo book that Connor and Palmiotti wrote, you don't need to know all that much about it, although you might be lost on some of the supporting characters if you haven't read at least a few issues. But since the price label isn't that much more than a regular comic book, I'm in for this miniseries, definitely. So if you'd like to see Harley and some of the more kick-ass superheroines of the DCU cut loose, this book is for you. And finally, for week 4, it's Wolverine #1. So after being dead, being old, being cosmic, being alive again, Wolverine is back among the living and the X-Men. It's his first solo series in the Krakoa era, and it's written by Benjamin Percy, who's been writing him in the current X-Force book, and drawn by longtime Wolverine artist Adam Kubert. This issue starts with a near-dead Wolverine regenerating and X-Force being dead all around him, apparently by his claws. In the recent past, basically Logan now has a good life. He's living in paradise, protecting and training mutant kids, and drinking whatever cheap hooch he can get imported in. But CIA agent Jeff Bannister is trying to track down just who is smuggling mutant pharmaceuticals around the country. Wolverine finds out about the smuggling, and he and X-Force investigate, only to find that people taking the drugs are dying because the drugs are being improperly mixed into a poison called pollen. This issue ends with Jeff and Logan finding each other after the drug kingpin, known only as the Pale Girl, encountered Logan, which somehow led to his murdering X-Force. But that's actually only the first half of the issue. It's an $8 book, but it contains 2 full-size stories. The second story, also written by Percy but drawn by Viktor Bogdanovic, shows Omega Red coming to Krakoa, taking advantage of the mutant clemency. Wolverine does not want his old Russian counterpart here, but goes to investigate why he came and what nearly killed him in the process. This is a more intimate Logan tale than the first story, as he conducts investigations and deals with his guilt over Omega Red. See, Logan can't deny the similarities between them. They're both killing machines, but since in the past Logan denied Omega Red a device that would have staved his bloodlust but it made him infinitely more powerful, a share of all the people that Omega Red has killed over the years is on Logan's shoulders. The art is really nice, and also there's a surprise at the end of the story as we learn who the real villain behind Omega Red is. I love Andy Kubert's art. It's got a visceral edge to it that has always worked well for Logan. Viktor Bogdanovic is also a great artist, and he puts a lot of character and expression into the faces he draws. Both stories are fun, but the first is more of a mystery that we're going to be unwrapping as the arc goes along, and the second is more personal, but with some nice surprises. But it is essentially one title with 2 full issues under its banner, so you are getting your money's worth.